on Tron, which is a film about AI, Disney did not allow us to use any AI at all, right? And so it may be the last film where it's just completely like human created.
Jayse went to Cantina and he vouched for me, and they called me basically saying like, we know you have no portfolio, no reel, you have no real education, but we're just gonna put you full-time on a job and just hope it works out.
And then one day I got a call and it was Andrew Kramer, and he said, so I know you're the hologram guy and we have some droids, but I can't tell you what it is.
I think to say, well, AI has no place in my workflow, I think in 10 years you may be too slow to get work.
Today I'm joined by Jayse Hansen and Darby Faccinto. If you're not familiar, Jayse is the designer and animator behind UI screen graphics in blockbuster movies like Iron Man, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Top Gun Maverick, and most recently, Tron Ares. Darby has an incredible origin story that begins with Jayse and has been working as a UI and motion designer for just 6 years, but already has a portfolio stacked with an incredible amount of work you've likely already seen. We talk about breaking into the film industry during 2 very different time periods in motion design history, building a new Figma-to-After Effects pipeline with Adam at Battle Axe specifically for Tron Ares, what it was like to work on Star Wars, why they still both prefer to use After Effects, and what AI means for the future of our craft. Hit that subscribe button and enjoy this conversation. Well, Jayse and Darby, most motion designers, especially ones that are just getting into it, are probably in the same kind of mindset that I have been, where the work that you do, the scale that you guys work on is kind of like a pipe dream. Like it's not even something that we could probably think is achievable. So I just love to know how both of you got into motion design and what allowed you or led you into being able to work on such high profile jobs.
Yeah. You want to start?
I was about to say, I was going to be humble.
You're going to tell me to start? I started, I was a graphic designer, like a print designer and a Flash web designer. And I saw this guy on stage one time at a convention in Vegas, actually. I didn't live here at the time. And I saw him speak about After Effects, and he put up his reel. And it was all these amazing graphics from like Mission Impossible, all these little devices, you know, the cool spy devices and stuff. He did the island. So that's Mark Kohler. And when I saw that, I was like, I just didn't know that was a thing. Like I always thought it was the coolest part of a film, but I loved that stuff, but I just thought it happened somehow, or it was like really heavy visual effects or something. I didn't know there was a guy that like was designing it, animating it, you know, putting it in and doing all that. And so that opened my eyes. And for like 2 years, I just kept thinking about it. And I was like, well, because at first I was like, I could never do that. You know, that's just way too crazy. That's crazy, you know? And plus I don't know any film people or anything. I'm, you know, and so for 2 years, it just haunted me. And I tried learning how to do it, and there were no instruction, barely any instruction on UI stuff, barely any instruction on infographics. But I took all of it, and I did a little project for Intel. I was doing like corporate videos, and I sold them on the idea of doing like, let's do some futuristic screens, and we'll zoom in on them, and they'll be loading a virus and stuff. And it was like, you know, that kind of thing. And they said, yeah, that's great, let's do it. And I had the best time. It was so hard. I was like, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought. And then it was so fun. I was like, all right, I'm sending this to that guy. I was like, I'm going to reach out. I'm going to say, hey, I know this is terrible. That's what I said. I was like, this is awful work. I know, but I'll get better. And if you ever need an assistant for free, I'll work free, you know, just let me know. And he wrote back and he said, well, it's actually not bad. And he said, let me introduce you to some guys that are looking right now. And that was like the first kind of referral that I got. And it was really hard though to break in still, even with a referral. I wasn't able to do that gig. And it took another like 6 or 7 months of like really trying to, and eventually another referral that he sent me, Gladys of G Creative, said, well, let's test you out on something, you know? And that ended up being X-Men Wolverine. And so that was my first like big test. Yeah. And it was 3D, and it was UI design and animation. And then I did a bunch of work with Gladys. And so we did Ender's Game, and we did RoboCop, and we did just a whole bunch of films together. And then I started doing stuff with Cantina, the Marvel stuff, Iron Man, and the Avengers. And that's when like everybody was kind of sharing that work out that I was doing. And that's, I think, when Darby found me, maybe, I don't know, but that might tie into Darby's start of getting into this world too.
Great. Yeah. So for anyone watching that doesn't know, I did live in LA for 7 years. So I kind of know the world. I'm not like, I never worked on any big films or anything, but I saw it. And the closest thing I'd say that I came to for me was I interned at Sony Pictures ImageWorks. And so I got to see what a production pipeline looks like for an animated film or something that has a lot of VFX work. But just as an intern and in a little cubicle, and had no idea what I was doing. But I got to experience it. But a lot of my experience in LA and in this industry has been through making connections. And I've never gone, to the extent that you did, Jayse, where you just literally reached out to the person who inspired you and said, hey, what do you think of my work? And so I think that's great advice. And I think that more people should be doing that and reaching out to the people they admire, because you never know.
I think that might be the only way to do it. Because just sending your reel blindly it doesn't work as well, because people have to know you a little bit. And so, yeah, definitely. I would recommend that. That's how I've done all my stuff ever since as well. So
awesome. What about you, Darby? I know you probably had a similar experience with Jayse, right?
Yeah. So I met Jayse when I was 14. I'm in Tennessee. So
you knew what he wanted to do.
Hey, no, I didn't. That was the thing. I didn't. So I've been in Tennessee the whole time. I'm still here. And my friend and I were running for class president in high school, freshman year. And like every young boy, we all wanted to be Iron Man. And I was like, we got to get a way to win the people, man. I was like, we got to get like a promo video. We got to do something. And I had always liked doing I was always making stuff around the house, like with a camcorder or whatever. And so I was like, oh, I kind of know how to use, Movie Maker. We could throw something together. And I was like really obsessive about the Iron Man HUD look. Like I loved it. I thought it was so cool the way it floated around his head and everything it did. And I was like, man, there's no way I could make that. But I bet if I could find the guy who made it, I could convince him to make one for me for this class election. Because I'm sure he would have time for that. So I Googled it, and this was like 2014, 2015. So this is like right at the height of like Jayce's like Iron Man stuff at Cantina. So like the Avengers and then Iron Man 3. And so his name popped up like immediately. And I found Cantina, I saw their work, and I was like, whoa, these guys are making all these things. And so I found him and I emailed him and I was like, hey dude, like this is super not a big deal. You could probably knock this out really fast. I just need you to make me some stuff. Like I can film it. You don't even have to worry about coming here to film me. Like I was very bold. And Jayse is like, hey man, can't do anything like that. But
I think he said a really short clip. It's like 5 minutes long. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
5 minute VFX shot.
Knock that out.
Straight. And I did say that. I should have brought the email. I have it somewhere, but and Jayce is like, nah, man, like, that's great, but I don't have the time for that. But here's an Andrew Kramer tutorial. Good luck. And
I was nicer than that.
He was nicer, yeah. But I had no concept of After Effects, of motion design. I didn't know any of this. Like, I was nowhere near this world. And so anyways, he sent me that tutorial, and then I called my dad, and I was like, hey, Dad, like, Tony Stark told me I could, like, do this. Like, can you buy me? I didn't have any money. I was like, can you buy me Creative Cloud? And so he got me Creative Cloud, and I did an After Effects tutorial, and then I sent it back to Jayce, thinking that I had gold on my hand, which I didn't. But he was like, hey, great, you did it. And then I took that as, oh, you want to see more, which I don't think he was meaning. I don't think he was meaning that. But I kept doing that for about 7 years, like 5 to 7 years. And about 3 to 4 years in, we started becoming like friends. And I was still just trying to do the Iron Man HUD on my face. So I would send him clips of me talking, and I would put new things over it.
And better. It was getting like, like film quality work, right? Okay. And I'm like, okay, this is getting there.
It was getting somewhere. And then by the time I got to college, so that would have been like 2018, 2019, Jayce invited me out to NAB. in Vegas. And so I went out there to hang out with him, and he introduced me to Andrew Kramer. He introduced me to all these like VFX people. And I just thought I was out there to hang out. I was in film school here at a school called Trevecca in Nashville and not doing any of this. This was just like a side hobby that I've been doing for years. And Jayse, we were hanging out, and I remember he would like pulled me aside and he was like, I feel like if you actually commit to this, you can absolutely do it. And up until that point, it wasn't even on it. For some reason, I had shut off to myself that I wasn't capable of doing work like that. And to have somebody who was doing it believe in me and tell me to jump out on that changed everything. So I came back and dropped out of college. And then I had to learn what motion design was because I had no idea. I had just made the HUD over and over and over again. And so now I actually needed to learn. And so I moved out to Vegas for a few months at Jayse, and I hung out with him during COVID. And I did some school of motion tutorials to learn what am I even doing. Fortunately, doing After Effects for 5 or 6 years all through high school, I learned some stuff. So I wasn't a total noob. And then Jayse would start to send me designs that he had from previous films. So like Big Hero 6 and Spider-Man Homecoming. And then he would give them to me. And then my job was to break them down and animate them and learn how to work with production files and what that looked like. And so after a few months of that, by like Christmas of 2020, I had moved back to Tennessee. I had no work and I had nothing lined up. And Jayse went to Cantina and he vouched for me, and they called me basically saying like, we know you have no portfolio, you have no real education, but we're just going to put you full-time on a job and just hope it works out. And so that was Loki. Loki was my first job with Cantina. Wow. And granted, I was under people. I didn't just, show up, but I wasn't like an intern. Like I was doing the work. And so since then it's just been like a nonstop rolling ball. And then Tron was our first movie together. So amazing. It's kind of like a full circle moment, but that's a little bit of my story. Yeah.
That is so cool. And I got to tell you that Loki, when that came on, I was so into that show. And that is one of the few shows that after watching the intro for the first time, I did not say skip credits. I watched that intro every single episode. I loved the entire aesthetic of that show, but I was obviously really pixel peeping anytime there was something that was animated on screen. Like I loved that look. So it was super cool to see that you've been involved in both of those seasons.
Yeah,
man. And man, what a origin story, like persistence, being bold. That is something that I do not hear that often, especially from motion designers. And I don't know, people watching this video, you might be getting a lot of emails from my audience now that they know the secrets, both of you.
Bunch of high schoolers, of high schoolers gonna be reaching out.
You know, one of the things Darby did differently, he reached out, and I get a lot of people that reach out. There's just a ton of people that reach out. I try to help them all, but beyond that, it's really on the person. And Darby didn't just take it and leave. He actually. He was willing to work, it was like that's a weird thing, right? Like being willing to work hard for what you want. And he had that. So by the time we got to Tron, I knew he was going to be my lead motion designer. And I knew because I trusted him with my designs, and that's something you need from an animator. You need to trust that they're not going to ruin it. And actually Darby's a bit different in that he'll even plus it up and make it even better. So that's a real trust that you've got to have with an animator. And so, so that whole experience kind of forged this bond that as soon as I started Tron, I'm like, I know who I'm bringing in first.
That's amazing. Way to go, Darby. What a way to stick with it. And
you're calling it persistence, but I call it ignorance because I had no social cues. And I was like, hey, I've got nothing to lose. Like, it's not my career. Yeah. I'm in high school. Like, I don't care. I just kept sending it to him. And there's something to that. There's something to that. But
yeah.
It's also says something about, the age that you were and what you had accessible to you, because even when I'm not that much older than you, I mean, you probably think I am much older than you, but I'm not that much older than you. And when I was learning, Andrew Kramer and Creative Cow were basically the only tools I had to learn After Effects. And the thought of like looking up somebody's like there wasn't really a way to contact people. There was no
Sure.
Facebook when I was learning this stuff, or social media where I could just reach out. So yeah, props to you for actually having the guts to reach out to people. But like you said, it was just like, what have I got to lose? And I think that's actually a pretty good attitude when you're learning things. So
thanks, man.
That's such a cool story.
Thanks.
Now, talking about Tron, and this is why we're having this conversation. Your career, Jayse, is, as I understand, has always been design in Illustrator, animate in After Effects. But for Tron, you changed things up all of a sudden, and now you're designing in Figma.
Yeah.
And I caught wind of this because at the time I was working at Battle Axe and you were friends with Adam. And so I got to hear that, hey, Jayse is actually switching to Figma. And I've never been able to have this conversation, but I'm just wondering what clued you into Figma being an option in the first place, and what would make you want to change the software you're designing in?
Yeah, that's a big change, especially like when you're in a film industry, which is only Illustrator. Like that is it. Nobody's using anything else for the design of these screens and stuff like that. So, but we've been using Illustrator just because there's really nothing else that can match it. This has been the history, right? So, but we've been using it for UI and really crazy UI. And so it was never set up for that. You know, it's an illustration tool. And so we hacked everything about it to get it to work the way we wanted it to work. But when Figma came out, I started using XD, and I kind of liked XD a lot, which is an Adobe, it's an Adobe app for UIs, similar to Figma. And then they shut it down. They kind of decided, well, we're going to do an end of life on that app. And so I decided, well, let me check out Figma. I've heard about it. I heard it's scary. You know, it's like, I heard it's very different. Yeah. And I'm like, well, let me just check it out. And I'm like, yeah, it's very, very similar to XD and even better. Like it has all the stuff I wish XD had. So I started going right into it, just seeing what was possible with it, and loved it. I was like, this is the app. So I did a few small little projects with it. And when Tron came up, I was like, you know, I wasn't, you know, this is Gmo Studios contacted me for Tron. And so it was kind of like, well, we're not beholden to Illustrator. Like we don't have to use that. And I was like, okay, let me just try designing from the start in Figma. And it worked out great. But when it came to prepping for animation, I was like, surely there's a plugin or something, you know? And there wasn't really. Like everything did not work good at all. And so I wrote Adam because I had done some back and forth with him on the Illustrator plugin. Super helpful. It's what all of us used, is Overlord. Right. And so everybody on our team all has that. And I said, hey, dude, can you make a Figma one, please? I like begged him. I was like, listen, I do not want to go back to Illustrator. And it's a little bit hard to get stuff from Figma to Illustrator. So that's the other problem, right? And so he said, yeah, I'll have something for you on Monday, you know, first test. And I was like, oh, thank God, right? And so he sent the first test, and he had shapes, you know, transferring. And this was great working with him. I know you probably know better, but I didn't know what it took to create a plugin. And so finding things like, okay, now I got text coming over. Now I've got text with the spacing coming over. Now I got, you know, we were doing things like, because I'll do like almost pre-comps, I guess, in Figma is like components. So I'll make a component, I'll flip it, I'll add that into another component, I'll flip it this way, I'll add it into another component, right? And so those weren't coming across originally. And he's like, okay, sends me a thing back, and it's like, okay, we got flips and stuff going now. Yeah. It was really fun to see his process, but he definitely became a huge part of our pipeline for months and months, and really saved us. Because it's such a great plugin. So, and it really enabled us to go right into After Effects.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's so fun hearing your side of the story, because I was a witness to it in a sense. I never really got to see exactly what you were sending him, but I did see he's like, hey, we can now do components, and they flip, and so, like exactly what you're just explaining.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, and that's what got me to use Figma for the first time, and what eventually made me decide, yeah, I actually should make a class on this. Motion designers should know about Figma.
Yeah. Yeah.
So thank you for giving me the bug to get into Figma.
Thank Adam, too.
Exactly.
dude.
Great.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is Adam has developed Overlord too. Is, I mean, the glue that brings all of these apps together, and still with Illustrator, it's just improving, and he keeps putting out new features for it. It's fantastic. Now we have Photoshop. It's awesome. Well, so now that you're in Figma, you see that it's working, you've got the tool that allow you to transfer more easily. How did that start shaping your workflow? What was Figma allowing you to do that you felt like you were missing from Illustrator or XD?
Yeah, Illustrator, it's not meant to be a pixel perfect kind of app. It's not meant to have many instances of a component that you can edit all the text of and edit all the properties of. It's not meant to have like a central design system of colors and fonts and layouts and styles and all that in a central area that can ripple across multiple files. So there's a bunch of stuff that, Illustrator can kind of do. It can kind of do all of that. So we could have done it in Illustrator, but the joy of doing it in Figma cannot be matched. I feel like I can't go back because it's really great. It's just so much faster, and it's so much more consistent and cohesive. And we had to do, across 260 shots is what we kind of got assigned. 235 final deliveries, I think, and this UI had to live across all those shots and in various storytelling on multiple devices, vehicles, screens, holograms, and HUDs, right? And so having a central design system was really important for that, just to keep that all consistent. And if somebody changed something, it should ripple across all the rest. And then also an important thing for us is in the film industry is keeping versions really at the ready. And so with Illustrator, you'd have to save things out, and you never know where things were. They're just all names, right, with versions numbers. But in Figma, I just would take the design, drop it down, and my current would always be at the top. And then I'd take another one, drop it down, take another one, drop it down. So I had all my versions. And what happens is a lot of times producers or directors will ask for a version that's like 30 versions ago. You'll be on version 79, and they'll say, actually, we decided, let's go back to 24 and start from there, right? And you've got to be able to have it ready to go fast. There's no time to redo that. So, and I've heard of people, of companies like really getting in trouble for not keeping their old versions. So, so Figma allowed that, and just a ton of other things like that. And then the speed of working with it and zooming in on that, it's a buttery canvas and everything. So this is the Figma project.
Okay.
And so it's kind of just organized into shots, basically, or sequences from the film. So the HUDs had obviously a lot of shots, and then we've got the holograms, the flat monitor screens, and then various other things like the light cycle, little display and stuff like that. So inside of these, like a single shot, I'll be designing up here. And sorry, I'm on a trackpad, so I usually use a wall. But here's this is the hand shot we were talking about. And Athena is kind of like feeling water for the first time. Mm-hmm. And it's just analyzing the water droplets. And so this was just kind of an idea of like it being ripples in a pond kind of thing. And it would distract her. It's almost like time slows down in this moment as she looks at her hand. And so this is a whole sequence. But this is what I was talking about with, once I design it out, I'll drop it down. I've got a whole history. So this is how it started, is a kind of an edit from production, the footage that they shot. We'll get the plate, the actual plate. Mm-hmm. and then I'll just begin designing over it. And so these are all just vectors, simple vectors. And I just kind of had this idea of mathematical, triangulations and stuff, drawing on. And then, doing different color looks inside of Figma is pretty easy, just to get ideas for the look of it. And I'll get to a certain point, maybe like around here or so, where I present it as, here's an idea, because they've never seen it of what it's going to be. And I think it was actually this one that I presented. And they loved that idea. They loved all the graphics of it. And then it was just a matter of kind of like figuring out the look, because we still hadn't decided a look yet. So I did these different kind of colorways, and Darby also was doing a bunch of comps on this background plate to see what we could bring out in it. Should it have a grid, all that kind of stuff. And then, but it's nice to have this history. So I've got this whole history of just the versions that I can go back to. And I like to actually see it.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like, I can see the progress of it. And then I just go back to working. I just kind of gives me an orientation for where it's been, especially when I'm working on several shots all in at the same time. It really keeps me straight on it. So that's another reason I love Figma for that. And then I think we just organized it I kind of organized it in terms of how I thought it would be most useful to come into After Effects. So that was also probably a really helpful thing for Darby. So
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was collaborative. Like I could join these Figma files live. And you could see my mouse.
Sharing it. Yep.
Yeah, sharing it. And I could even like design stuff out and be like, what about this? Or like, how about this? Or, if Jayse was like, maybe running into a wall, I could like take a stab at it, do a version or something. And we could leave each other notes. And, if Jayse was on working late, he could write me some notes out of his thoughts, and then I'd see it in the morning kind of thing. And it, much more collaborative than Illustrator, opening it up and seeing like an artboard and a bunch of stuff outside of the artboard and not knowing exactly where the thought process was. So this was really cool.
Yeah, that was one part of Figma that kind of scared me at the beginning, was the collaborative workflow, because I was just like, I don't want anybody watching me work. Like, get out of here. But this is a perfect example of where that would be really beneficial.
Yeah.
Well, Jayse didn't like it either. He didn't like it up front.
I know. I thought it was bad. At first, I didn't like it. Yeah. And then I was working on several things where everybody was just like kind of in there working together. And I was like, well, it's actually kind of cool. It's kind of fun. Yeah. So by the time we were on Tron, it was like, it was like see each other. But it's always like, are you watching me design right now? Or but yeah, I would use this dev mode thing, ready for dev. And that was kind of like ready for Darby. I just kind of changed it over, ready for animation. And that really helps because you see it over here. It's such a long list of pages and stuff. But yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. Are you planning on trying to push Figma moving forward in the projects that you're working on?
Oh yeah. And I've got a call with Figma. We're going to talk about doing a little bit of PR on this as well, because they're pretty excited. So yeah.
There are a lot of things that I wish Illustrator would adopt from Figma. The components aspect is amazing. I've seen really amazing stuff that I have NDAs, so I can't even tell you what it is, but UIs of apps that were fully designed in Figma that look like the app that you're using on the desktop. And it's just like, I can change this color and everything about the interface changes, or the font or the weight or whatever. And like you said, it ripples across everything. So there is a lot of power in that tool. The thing that I've been hearing from motion designers more and more is that they're being handed Figma files from designers working in Figma, and they didn't know what to do with them, like because they don't know the app. And so that's why I started making a little bit of content on my YouTube channel about it, and just to be like, it's really not that big of a leap. Once you get into it, like you just feel it feel it out.
Yeah.
Get your bearings. It's just another design app, but it has some.
I was worried because all the people, especially when we hired up, I think up to 20 people we had at one point, right? It was kind of we grew and then shrunk. But we had up to 20 people, I think. And that was my concern, was like, how is this team going to take it, right? Once it gets to a big level of people working on this. And it turns out a lot of them had touched Figma, like they were semi familiar with it and they weren't afraid of it, which was the good thing. Or some of them would hand it off to Darby and be like, hey, could you just export this for me? And then he would get it into After Effects. So it was, no big deal. Yeah. So it ended up being really, really fluid, even for people who were just After Effects,
Great.
Or just Photoshop. Yeah.
Awesome. So Darby, was this your first time using Figma, or had you been familiar with it before Tron?
I'd been familiar with it for a little bit. Jayse got me into Figma, and then anything that I was doing on my personal computer, like side jobs and stuff, I'd use Figma for, and then anything industry, like at Cantina or whatever, was all still Illustrator. Mm-hmm. So I'd used it enough to know the interface, know how it works. Jayse and I had some shared documents where we were messing around. But I definitely never used it in a production setting. I definitely never had really done motion design with Figma either. So when Jayse called me and I was like, yeah, like we've been talking about Tron for a bit, and then it was finally time to start. And he was like, it's all in Figma. And I was like, oh, sweet. Well, how do I get it out? And he's like, I don't know yet. Yeah. It's like, and I went in there and I'm like, well, maybe he just kind of started and if we have to pivot to Illustrator, we can. No, I mean, like he had built all the systems out. Like he was ready to go. And I was like, crap, dude, we're going to have to figure this out. So he got me in contact with Adam from Battle Axe. And Adam and I had like a line of communication early on. And basically I would take a thing that Jayse had and I would try to get it into After Effects. And then I would tell Adam every single thing that went wrong. And then I'd be like, dude, look, like I told him straight up, he laughed one day. I was like, I'm going to be real with you, man. Like, you're the only way I'm going to get this done. So like, you got to figure it out.
It's all on you.
I don't know how else I'm going to do this, but to Adam's credit, he knocked it out of the park. Mm-hmm. And so, and the cool thing about Figma, which I love much more than Illustrator, is in Illustrator, you have your layers and you make your layers. And then when you import in After Effects, you can import it as a single layer or a composition. And then it breaks out all your layers into a comp or whatever, which is cool. It works fine. But the issue is that, I mean, I'm going to say specifically for like a Jayse file, like if you're inheriting something from him, it's like, I'm not kidding. Like sometimes like 800 to 1,000 layers of like,
wow,
like dots, just dots. It's not counting everything else, right? Like and everything ideally does something. And so the issue I would have in Illustrator is I would either take a large design, bring in like 5 layers and mask out what I need and duplicate it or whatever, which is not ideal, and then have to rebuild text because text doesn't come in. Or I go to Illustrator and spend so much time dropping every single thing into an individual layer system. And so with Figma, if you group stuff and put like an underscore, that's a pre-comp. And so Jayse handed me these files, and I'll give you credit, Jayse, they weren't dirty. They were pretty clean. But I had to go through. and comb through a little bit because we figured out some stuff that worked. But it got to a point where, and this is just how my brain works. Like I know there's different ways to like tackle UI animation. And I know a lot of people who like are on one end of the spectrum and way over here. And I know a lot of people in the middle. And there's ways to like make stuff feel complex without doing anything complex. And then you're touching every single layer because you're going to touch every single layer. And that's what I do or try to. So these shape layers would come in, and every single thing coming in from Figma is a shape layer. So After Effects would sit for 10 or 15 minutes just bringing in one shot. And then I had to go in and make sure everything was good. And, I would end up with like hundreds and hundreds of shape layers. And I made an effort to try to touch every single one of them. And to me, that was a benefit, even though it felt like information overload. But for a show like Tron, where the brief was like fleeting thoughts, like Ares looks at something and you see everything and then everything's gone, right? Like it's like boom, 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 boom. That was really important to me, that we were able to have everything feel bespoke and not just like a flash on, flash off from a masked out, Illustrator file or a linear wipe or whatever.
Right.
I was actually animating the text on. I was animating all the little dots, and yeah. So the complexity with the Figma pipeline actually helped my motion design because it gave me access to be as complex as I wanted to be. And Jayse design is very complex. So it almost demanded that level of fidelity from both of us.
That's a really great thing that you just called out, because when you see UI design on maybe a TV show that doesn't have the biggest graphics budget, it shows, and you understand like that looks really fake or like just low effort. And I think that translates to any kind of animation, not just UI, UX design stuff, but just this. I remember one of the first lessons in animation boot camp at School of Motion, we had to animate text, and the TAs were encouraging all the students to break up the text into individual characters. Don't skimp out and just do one word at a time or the whole line. Like actually break up. And it was like 25 layers. I was like, 25 layers? Like, are you kidding me? I can't animate 25 layers. But it makes such a difference. And that's why it was called Animation Boot Camp. It felt like boot camp. Like I was doing all this work that I was like, people can't actually be doing these many keyframes. But it's like, no, like that is the work.
Yeah.
And it turned into something that I ended up loving to do.
Yeah.
And I've never created anything as complicated as what you two are working on. But I guess the point of what I'm trying to say is that it's very noticeable when someone like you goes in and actually moves things with intention, even if there are 1,000 layers. Going in and seeing that little bit of detail, at least for me, when I'm watching this content, I notice it. And I'm like, I can appreciate that there's an animator who put so much effort into that and the designer who obviously created the elements, but it makes the movie or TV show watching experience better for me. So I appreciate it. I think it's worth it. And I see that effort every time I watch this kind of stuff.
Well, good. I'm not crazy.
No.
Yeah.
Well, I would love if we could to talk about Star Wars, because I know both of you have touched Star Wars content and I'm a huge Star Wars nerd. So, Jayse, you worked on Force Awakens, and did you touch any other Star Wars stuff, or was it just Force Awakens?
That was it. I hunted that one down because I'm a huge Star Wars fan, huge, and like insane levels. Like I have a R2D2, a Boba Fett. I've got all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, I was like, I knew this film was coming, and I knew it was going to have Carrie Fisher, and it was going to have all the actors, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford. And then I was like, so this is it, this is I've got to get on this film, and I chased it around for like 2 years, and nobody knew, like everybody I knew didn't know who was working on it. Everybody was like, you tell me if you find out, because I don't know. So eventually, towards like 2 years in, I was just like, all right, it's not happening, And I found out that they were filming in the UK, and I thought, all right, that's why. It's all going to be overseas, and so okay, I'll just watch the film as a fan. That's fine. And then one day I got a call, and it was Andrew Kramer, and he said, so I know you're the hologram guy, and we have some droids, but I can't tell you what it is. And I said, what? I go, pick. Who's on your team? And he goes, nobody right now. And I'm like, well, you found your first member, And he's like, well, I heard you were in Vegas. I didn't know. And I'm like, dude, I'm wherever you need me to be. So, that ended up going out the next week and starting on that show. And that was, I sat down at my new, computer where they had me at Bad Robot in Santa Monica. And on the screen, they said, all right, here's your first shot. It was like I'll send you an image or a video of it, but it was it was what was called the Star Killer, right? Star Killer Base.
Star Killer Base, yeah.
The hologram for that. And around it was R2D2, C-3PO, Chewbacca, Han Solo, Princess. I'm like, this is my first shot. I love this. Is great. Heaven right here. So, we ended up doing that. All the holograms and a lot of the screens and also the the title design, the whole credit crawl.
Oh, amazing.
The new Star Wars logo at the very beginning that shoots back, because JJ wanted like he wanted like his version, but he wanted it to respect the Empire Strikes version.
Okay.
And so I did all that, and it was, that was a bucket list item. That was the bucket list item. Yeah. So
amazing. So cool. And Darby, you touched Skeleton Crew, right? How far into your career was it when you got to start working on a Star Wars property?
I think it was about 3 years in. I think something like that. That was a Cantina too. And me and my friend Ramiro Galan kind of like started that process. And I remember we had meetings. The coolest part to me of my Skeleton Crew experience is the people I met. So Cantina, which by the way, Cantina Creative's like the best doing screen graphics like in the industry, and they're so chill, like they're so seasoned, and they've been in so many meetings. So to them, like nothing's ever a big deal. And we started Skeleton Crew, and I was like, dude, this is Star Wars. Like, I start texting Jason, like, bro, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready to get in. I start getting all my reference together to design. And then I find out one of our kickoff calls is John Knoll, Jon Favreau, and Doug Shang all together. And I was like, and like Cantina, right? Like that was the whole call. And then I think the producer from, because John Watts did it. It was one of his producers that was there. And so, Cantina was just like, another day in the office. And they don't typically include the artist.
Right.
Literally, the justification is, why would you waste your time? Like, those are boring. They're meetings. Like, we got it. Like, don't even sweat it. We'll take the notes for you. You just keep going. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. I want to be there. And Sean was like, you want to be there? He's like, why? I'm like, it's cool. He was like, if you want to be there. So they let me go to the meeting, and it was me, Sean, our coordinator, Ramiro, and then John Knoll, Doug Shang, and Jon Favreau. And we're sitting around talking about Star Wars and dialects of Arabish. And then they start pulling up our screens, and I'm like, oh, crap, I didn't think about this. Like, they're going to look at my stuff. So we start looking at our designs, and it was such a throwaway comment. But they pulled up this targeter screen I did. And Jon Favreau was like, nice, I like it. Like, he meant it, but it was very throwaway. And I remember being like, yeah, like, yeah, like, all right, like, I'm here. Yeah. I'm doing something for real. So that was such a cool moment to be able to talk to those guys and to be a part of that universe. Because, Doug Shang, I think I'm saying it right, Shang, right? He did all the art concept for all the prequels. Like designing all the planets and the ships, and Lucas put him at like a really crazy level. So to be there with him and then show him my little screens, like that was crazy. Yeah.
Wild. So cool. Yeah. And I loved Skeleton Crew too. That was such a fun kind of one-off story that I tuned into every week. So awesome to get to hear a little bit about the behind the scenes of those. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I just have a couple more things that I'd like to run by you guys, because you're both still working in After Effects, and I don't know if you pay attention to YouTube comments. Probably not, but I do, because this is what I do for a living. And I recently put out the After Effects version 26 feature update, roundup, and those videos always perform well on my channel. And they almost always are split 50-50 in the first 24 to 48 hours in terms of positive and negative comments. And then it just takes a nosedive, and it is so much hate towards Adobe, and these are stupid features. They don't care about their customers. But you guys are still using After Effects. I'm still using After Effects. Like, what do you guys think of the state of After Effects? Because you've been using it long enough that you've seen where it's been for long enough, and where, you're not constantly comparing it to Blender's free or, these other apps that are kind of competing, but not really. What are your thoughts on the current state of After Effects, and what's keeping you from jumping ship and trying a different program at this point?
for me at least, I'll always try new stuff. There's been nothing that's been able to replace it in terms of its flexibility with graphics specifically, and also in the same time a professional compositing workflow for film. So with like Aces, and Darby can talk about this even more, but all of that has gotten so much better and so good. It's just I know it's hard to replicate that in another software. But we're working artists, so we want something that's fast and fluid and works for us. After Effects is it's kind of become solid and it's become reliable, and that's a real comfort when you're on deadlines and stuff like that. But I'm super excited about all the new stuff that's coming out, and I'm super excited every time Adobe adds features. And I know a lot of times they seem pretty small, but like a lot of the stuff that just came out, we've been waiting for, and that could be a complaint, right? Why it took so long? But at least it is being updated, and I know some of their behind the scenes plans that are pretty exciting, and so I'm pretty excited about where it's going. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think
Has it changed much for you, Darby, since you started using it?
Yeah, like when I started 3 years ago. Kidding. No, it's I have a love-hate relationship with After Effects, but it's mainly love. Like Jayse was saying, like to have something like, because I don't think people realize, like, especially for like a show like Tron, we're working After Effects, like those were 8K plates. A lot of them are IMAX. And then we were doing, before we even touched it, there were heavy grades and color transforms happening. And then our graphics were over it. And After Effects was able to take all of that. And then what came out of After Effects is what you see in the theater. It was like right out. And there's not a lot of like programs that can kind of like wrangle that are user friendly and make it look that good.
And they can do the graphics part of it. I think that's our
right.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not just the compositing. It's
which I'm not much of a compositor, but like to be able to see someone's comp, we had Justin Hemsley was our main compositor on Tron, and so to see his comp set up, and I could work with the graphics live and see what it will look like in the theater, right? Mm-hmm. Like right on this other screen, was super important. But also something that I think not a lot of people talk about as much is like graphics are not OBJs. They're not three-dimensional files, and lots of vendors want you to have a pass of graphics that they can overlay to comp. And this was something we kind of ran into on Tron. We had a team of some Houdini guys that were doing this sequence where all these cubes fly past Ares and he's searching for Eve. And there's a graphics portion, then a whole 3D environment portion. And so it was us, it was me and the Houdini team, and then it was ILM. And we were all kind of working together, trying to figure it out. And like they would talk about, just, give it to, like, do your shot, give it to us on alpha, whatever. We'll put the graphics in there. And I was like, me and Jayse were fighting for it all to be in After Effects. It's like, no, you guys do it first, and then I'll do the last step. Because After Effects can do volumetric layers like that. And I can work with the graphics. And having that live with a camera that I can import and actually use, you can get correct perspective. We can dial in the comp on the graphics, which for some reason always seems to have a discrepancy between After Effects and Nuke. It's never quite like what we did. So After Effects is unique in that sense, I think, in being able to handle a wide variety of workflows, 3D cameras, 3D scenes, color pipelines that are unique, doing high-res shots, and everything is live. Everything is happening in there, and I can change it on the fly. I think that's unique. But my hate relationship with After Effects is that there are times where like you just like think, oh, why aren't you just doing this thing? This should just happen, and it doesn't happen. And you got to find these like weird workarounds. And I'm so grateful they just added unmult.
Yes.
We're waiting on unmult. It's stuff like that. Like,
as a team, I think we have like 7 different unmolts or something.
That's what I'm saying. Like we had to all find an unmolt because everybody had to have it, and it's stuff like that where I'm like, we're almost there. Like We're almost there.
So we
But
need one unmult that works. Yeah.
yeah.
And it works
But
so well too.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I
was
know the
great.
guys who made it. So I got
It's
to thank
great.
them personally
Oh,
for
that's
doing
great.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
fantastic.
as far as new tools, I get asked a lot, like if I speak at places, like the number one question I get is, what did you use to make this? And then what do you think about like where tools are going? Those are like the number one questions I get. And I don't know how you feel, Jayse. Maybe I'll pose a question if I can to Jayse. But I don't like the idea of learning something 40% and then stopping and then learning something else 40% and stopping. Like the rules of Earth are still going to be the same. Motion is motion. The way things are going to happen is the way things are going to happen. Your means to get there. Like if you're just doing it creatively to learn a new tool, that's great. But I feel like a lot of people chase the next tool and they think the tool is what's going to get them into like some kind of new echelon of work. And I feel like honestly, it's more important to be at a level with your tool where it feels like it's an extension of yourself. Like when I open After Effects, I don't think about what I'm doing. I just know creatively where I want to go. And I think there's something to be said for that. And so while I am excited for these new tools, I don't think I've left yet because I have that kind of relationship with After Effects.
I think you just said my feelings on the subject really eloquently. That's at the beginning of my career, I kind of clung to After Effects because I was afraid of other software. And after I got out of my shell a little bit, after GPU rendering became a thing, and I was like, okay, well, 3D is a little more accessible to me now. I branched out. I learned Cinema 4D. I learned Blender. I saw, okay, new software, the more I learned, the easier it is. But I always came back to After Effects because that is where the type of work that I'm doing is easiest. And it's where I am most comfortable and I know the workflow. And like you said, it just feels like an extension of myself. It doesn't feel like I'm questioning things. Like I know where all my tools are and I know how to use them effectively. So I think, yeah, you just put that really, really eloquently.
Yeah, when I was first starting, I asked a teacher. I said, "Where should I aim to go with? I want to get really good at motion graphics." And he said, "Aim to get to the place where the software disappears." And I didn't understand what he meant at first. I was like, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, when we hire, we look at artists and we look at their motion, and we can tell if we see the program in their work, then they're not that great. But if the program disappears and it's just work, then we know they're good." And he said, we also look at it for like, that's how they operate. If they're really like hung up by all these little things and whatever, then it's going to impede the work. But when they get to that point where they're just flowing, like Darby said, it's a whole nother level, because now you're just worrying about, is this telling the story? Is this conveying the emotion of it that we want? And it's different discussions that you're having with your team. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. You kind of touched a little bit on this, I think. I might be pulling this out of thin air, but I feel like I have the opportunity to hear from you guys about AI from people working in this creative industry. I'm really curious because it's obviously threatening a lot of people and their jobs. And I think the VFX industry is feeling that, and even animation. It's all new. It's all changing so quickly. I'm just curious what you guys feel about it, and if you've tried it, if you tried experimenting with AI in your own workflows, or are you completely against it? I'm just curious what you guys think about it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those kind of things like fire. Fire is really cool, but it can do some real damage as well, and it's a double-edged sword. First off, on Tron, which is a film about AI, Disney did not allow us to use any AI at all, right? And so it may be the last film where it's just completely like human created in that way. And the reason is lawyers, right? Like it's like the way they explained it to us was, if 5 years from now a certain model that you used is determined to have violated copyright and everything, and we have to yank that film off the shelves, that's a real problem. So let's just not use any of it. But that's going to change, obviously. They're building their own models. There's a lot of, models that are built with copyright in mind, and et cetera. I think that'll all work itself out. And when that happens for big projects, yeah, I think they're all going to take advantage of it. It's a real benefit to a storyteller to be able to tell your cinematic story without needing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of budget to do it. So it obviously is gonna affect all of us. And I'm much more of a technological forward kind of guy, so I can see all of the exciting benefits that offers to everybody, all artists, even the artists who may be impacted by it. They will still have jobs. It's just those jobs will be a bit different. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I've been working on seeing if workflows can be developed where it results in 4K final output that actually is production ready. Mm-hmm. And it's very close. It's very, very close. So my suggestion is to become better artists and designers, because that stuff, it's still required, even if you're using AI, right? So if you're going to be an AI generator and you're going to be really good at it, what's going to make you really good at it? It's going to be your taste. So learn all this stuff. Your classes are awesome, like the animation class, and that's all the kind of stuff that I would recommend to early, even advanced motion graphics people, because they really need to understand those what's at the basics of animation. It really means a lot. It really changes and really improves your work, and that'll still be necessary, because if you've seen the latest kind of like AI motion graphics type of thing from Higgsfield and different products, Remotion, it's not great. It moves.
Yeah.
It's not great. And so that's going to be, and some people won't know, but you'll know, because it's like, you got to have that taste for it.
Right. And the instant that you ask it for a change, that's what I've historically seen as being the biggest challenge, is, at least at this point, image generation and video generation models, just you couldn't present it to a client, because the client's going to give you feedback, and then it's like, well, the AI doesn't want to do that again.
Yeah,
it wants to do its own thing.
Stuck, right? You're stuck with that. Well, check out Weavy.ai. Okay. Figma just bought it, so it has a feature with Figma. But it is a workflow that's a node-based workflow.
Okay.
The founders, I think, were Nuke compositors, or they're node-based compositors, and so they built it in a way that's kind of friendly to our workflows. And that's specifically what I like about it, is that you can art direct it, you can change it, you can build out a chain of things and then change one thing back here in the chain and have it ripple back through. So changes, and that's the production workflow, right? That's what we need. I think it's just, don't be afraid of these new ways of working. The creativity's still got to be there. Your artist and your eye still has to be there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's a great way to think about it. Do you have anything about AI, Darby, that you want to say?
Well, it's kind of crazy, because I feel like I don't know. I feel like I'm coming in like at a weird time in the industry. Like I've had a little brief moment where I've gotten to see the industry pre-AI. I think this year is like 6 years of me doing this full time now. So this is like this is it. We're entering into we're never going to go back to this point. And I've been trying to think of how I feel about it, and I think the best, and I don't have something as eloquent as Jayse, that fire comment. Dude, that was like philosophy. Where'd you pull that out from? He's like, it's like fire. I was like, what the heck? Now that sounds stupid. Well, so have you seen the ILM doc on Disney Plus?
Yes.
Okay. What's it called? Magic something? Like Making the Magic or something like that. Yeah. There's an ILM doc on Disney Plus about the making of ILM, the studio, and everything they've done. And there's a section where they talk about Jurassic Park. And they talk about how Stan Winston was doing all the dinosaurs, and they had them built. They were halfway through. And then these dudes are starting to mess around with 3D modeling and animation. And so on their own time, they kind of made some stuff and then pitched to Spielberg. And there's a quote where Kathleen Kennedy and Spielberg are in there watching this dinosaur walk by in this like little test showing. And they said that Spielberg leaned over to Kathleen Kennedy and was like, we're never going to come back from this. Like, this is about to change everything. And so they used a lot of Stan Winston stuff still, but there were a lot of shots that got taken over by CG, because now you could shoot in environments that maybe wouldn't have made sense before. And there was this huge internal battle after that movie of these prop makers and like stop motion animators saying, this is never going to work. And I'm refusing to learn this program. I'm going to stay in my lane here. And then there was a large group of people who left the traditional route and said, well, these skills are applicable here. It's just a new tool, a new medium. And those are the ones who kept their jobs, and then, which, exactly. And I get it. There's a pride in everything's by hand. This is how it was done. And I don't think something new has to be seen as a threat to the art form. Maybe just a new way of the means there. And I feel like people get really, really protective over that. There's somebody I know here close to me. He was a 2D animator at DreamWorks for like Prince of Egypt and El Dorado and a lot of those like great 2D hand drawing movies. And he told me that, I think it's like a common story now, but when they were working on that, the bad people got sent to Shrek because Shrek was considered jail, right? Like if you were like doing a bad job. And he told me that everybody was like, oh, the 3D thing, it's not going to maybe go anywhere. And then like after that round of movies, everything coming out of DreamWorks is 3D. Right. And so these 2D artists either had to learn 3D or unfortunately become a very niche art form. And so it is a harsh reality, but I think to say, well, AI has no place in my workflow, I think in 10 years, you may be too slow to get work. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So it doesn't have to replace you. You just need to find a way to ingest it and continue doing what you're doing to catch up. So.
And one thing that's always helped that I've done from the beginning is look for those areas where people are afraid to go into. Those are the areas that have a large need and a small amount of people that can do it. And right now that's AI stuff. There's very few people that can actually do it good. Mm-hmm. Lots of people who are just doing happy accident type stuff. But the people that are doing it well right now are in huge demand. That's what everybody wants right now. So if, it's more like, what if you could master it? What if you could be the person that actually really took it on and did it really well? There's a lot of value to that.
Yeah.
That's incredibly wise wisdom, knowledge. What great knowledge you guys both just shared. And Darby, I think you have incredible foresight into recognizing these similarities between different time shifts of like you said, going back to ILM or DreamWorks. This early in your career, I'm super amazed to hear that you're already making those connections, because I'm seeing those same kind of things. And AI is touching so many facets of our life, not just art, but self-driving cars, and I mean so many different things that I think this is the biggest technological leap of our lifetime that we will ever see. And it's bigger than any technological leap that's ever happened in the past. It's like electricity. I mean, it's not going away. It is so powerful. And Jayse, like you said, it's in demand for the people who actually know how to use it well. So I just really want to say thank you so much for both of you coming on and sharing your thoughts and experiences with me and with my audience. This has been such a great conversation, and I'm honored to have both of you on my channel. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, man. Thank you so much. Love your channel, and thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, dude.
And